That's ominous.
I know, it's hot in here. There's no air.
Oh yeah, I guess you are in a little office space.
In a closet.
All right, it's live. All right. Okay, so I did some internet calculating. Oh wait, I'll let you go first.
So welcome everyone to Future of Work stream, LinkedIn live stream with myself, Joe Rogers, and Kirsten Campbell. I'm here 20 stories below Culver City, and Kirsten's up in Vancouver, British Columbia.
Beautiful BC.
Yes. So this is our fourth broadcast on LinkedIn Live, and Kirsten, I think we owe each other a virtual champagne toast. Ping.
Toast. Yes.
Chug.
Yes.
Yeah. This is if I may, this was all Kirsten's idea, and it originated with Clubhouse. Perhaps you've heard of it, a new social media platform, and she approached me about co-hosting something on Clubhouse. And how many times did we do it, Kirsten?
Maybe 6 or so. I should have counted, but I didn't.
Yeah. And I think we had a total of about 4 guests, maybe 5. But that sort of prompted me to apply for a LinkedIn Live streaming access. And after a little cajoling, LinkedIn decided to give it to me. I still don't know why. And here we are. And it's been a really good experience. So for people tuning in, it's if you have an adventurous bone in your body and you're kind of wanting to do this sort of thing, just do it. This hasn't cost a penny. All software is free, so it's kind of crazy. Anyhow, I just felt like I wanted to say that for some reason. Today's topic is automation and AI and how it will impact our future work lives. As in, will it cease to exist? I don't know. I phrased it a little differently than you probably would, Kirsten, but what do you think? It's clear that automation has been around for a long time, and it has impacted labor in various ways, starting with the steam engine and the cotton gin, et cetera, going back hundreds of years. Yeah, what do you think?
Well, for the past 600 years, humans been freaking out about technology, like encroaching upon our lives. So that's normal. At least we're consistent with that. But I think the reason that automation is slightly separate from the other 600 years is that, first off, like the printing press, we had a long time to get used to it and kind of have it acclimate to our lives. Whereas the internet kind of burst on the scene like the Kool-Aid man into our lives, where, in the past 20 years, the shifts that have been brought forth by the internet and the technology that's come forth from that is completely separate than, the printing press and things like that. So I think automation is a different beast, but then I think a lot of the same rules and fears and stuff like that do still apply. But I think ultimately automation is going to end up with you're either in a sort of soft skill job or something tech. I think at the end of the day, there's going to be a huge divide and there really won't be much in the middle.
Interesting. So either soft people skill type jobs or hardcore tech.
Mm-hmm.
And automation is going to encroach on tech as well. And some would say, I know a guy who actually uses AI as a therapist, to listen to people's problems. They will share instead of going to see a psychiatrist, and laying down on the couch, they'll talk into their phone. And a lot of people are more and more increasingly comfortable doing that, knowing that it's not knowing what's on the other end. It might be an algorithm or it might be a human being. So it's interesting, the soft skills. But I think you're right. I think just as, you know, the blue collar jobs were hugely affected back in the 80s and 70s and 90s, white collar jobs are going away. And the question is, so that's kind of one answer to our question. Will AI end work as we know it? I mean, in those cases, yes. But there's people are reskilled and retrained, hopefully, and there are new jobs that didn't exist, you know, before are created. So they are, you know, positioned to slide into those in an ideal world. I don't think it usually works out that way. But I think if we look forward, say, 50 years or 100 years, a lot of the stuff, you know, that we have to do is going to be done for us. And I have this feeling is like the poverty line, like, I don't know if this is wishful thinking, but I don't think anybody's going to be below the poverty line. I think it'll, or maybe quality of life will go up and the poverty line adjusts as well. I don't know. But as far as, you know, everybody just sort of laying around eating grapes with people fanning them, which is, you know, pretty much my home life now. It's yeah, right. I don't know. I think humans need to have some sort of objective to achieve, or to, you know, in order to give their life meaning. Otherwise,
they do. Well, Emmanuel Ezekiel, Obama, one of Obama's advisors, I wrote about him a few times in Work Done content. And that was one of the 3 core tenets that humans intrinsically need to have a happy life, and it's meaningful work along with passionate interests. And I can't remember the 3rd one right now. But meaningful work is so true, because you think about it, where how many people who've been laid off lose their identity? How many people, you know, when you lose a job, it feels like a death in the family. Like for so many, like, so that's why, like, on one hand, when you think of like government policies and stuff of like, oh, people aren't motivated to work, that's not true. People are intrinsically motivated to work, but there are other factors at play there. So that also made me think of our other conversation about universal basic income, where perhaps in the future of work, it would be a conditional universal basic income based on if you're taking training or you're somehow upskilling or something like that. So there's always that possibility that the future of work might actually push something like that. So maybe we would have this like university utopia where we're all wandering around sharing ideas instead of, you know, the humans in WALL-E, where we're just like eating fast food and zipping around looking at TV screens.
You know, I love WALL-E. That's such a great film. Yeah, got a thing for Pixar. You said a lot just now. It's interesting. In that university utopia where people just wander around and think and pontificate, there's still somebody working in the cafeteria, you know, cooking the food and making the beds. And, but that was in the past. And, you know, I read about an automated restaurant, a robotic restaurant in Japan. So are you saying that the people, the service people, traditional service people, would be out walking around pontificating and sipping on tea as well?
Well, I think they'd be upskilling to whatever that might look like. Because I think, as like I mentioned, the sort of divergent 2 fields of you're either in soft skills or hard skills. But I think the soft skills, there's so much in there that we haven't developed yet, because the humanities and the arts, et cetera, are so sort of cast aside, especially in the past, you know, 20, 30 years for STEM, that with emotional intelligence, curiosity, creative problem solving, like a robot can't take the temperature of a room. a robot can't know who brings team spirit to office meetings. Like those are the sort of magical moments that robots can't pick up on. And I think that that's where the soft skills and things like that will head, especially now that we're all remote. Communication is so important. So, you know, you can't just dictate something to AI and hit send on the email. Like communication, especially now, I think is going to get incredibly nuanced.
That's interesting. So now that I'm sure you've heard of GPT-3 from OpenAI, it writes like English prose. It's from what I understand, almost, you know, you can't tell the difference from a human. But it's, you know, I don't know enough about it to speak knowledgeably aside from what I've read in a couple articles. But so you're saying that now that that can be done in an automated fashion, it actually becomes human created connection, communication is even more important?
It's even more important because, like, obviously as we're more digital now, but I'm meaning more in the technology. Like people are going to have to be, I think people are going to be programming more with communication, soft skills, emotional intelligence, curiosity, all those kind of things that humans bring to the table. I think we're going to start seeing more of that getting imbued into the technology that we use and the new technology that comes forward. Because the further, like, I know it may sound crazy, but like humans crave human connection. So the further we get from it, in a way, we're almost going to want to overcorrect. And so I think there's going to be a deep yearning to have more humanity in our tech. And I think that's where a lot of opportunity in the future of work lies, through ethics, humanities. You know, like writing prose is different than writing an article that makes somebody feel seen and validated. Like I would like to see a robot do that. Translating Shakespeare is one thing, but actually making somebody cry at the end of writing a paragraph because they feel seen. If a robot can do that, then I'll be impressed.
Wow. Yeah, that's a good point. And that really, you know, touches on sort of an aspect of just work that people, you know, look to, which is meaning. You know, it's I can't speak for everyone, but I definitely derive meaning from what I do. And if I, you know, and I'm pretty sure not everybody is like that. And I think if you're lucky enough to derive meaning from what you do, you know, you're kind of in the minority. I think it's most people don't, which is a shame. And I'm hoping that in the future, people's vocations or however they spend their time is actually, they do it with purpose. Like, oh, I care about the climate. I'm going to have a job, you know, in like hydrogen energy or something that doesn't pollute or something green. Like, and I know people like that, and you can tell that they're so fired up about what they do every day. It's remarkable. So yes, being able to write something that touches a nerve or makes someone cry or moves someone, that's probably not going to get automated anytime soon. So, and that's considered a soft skill, I believe.
Yeah.
Well, as a child of STEM, I think I have a lot to learn there.
I mean, robots can eventually learn to love. In all Disney movies, they can. So there you go.
Wow. We got a comment, a greeting from Bosco Robles, a pop art and gospel and blues fan.
Well, hello. That is quite a combination of all the things.
That guy is not about to get automated away anytime soon. Thanks, Bosco.
No.
It's so let me ask you, do you think that automation, if executed correctly, could revolutionize the future of work with regards to human satisfaction and personal autonomy?
Yes, I think if, and again, this is obviously like taken with a boulder of salt because it has to be done correctly. So God help us all. But I think, again, like in a perfect utopian world where it could be applied correctly, yeah, you could ultimately, like, people want to work, people want to contribute to their community, they want meaningful relationships, people want those things. Like for me personally, like if we had a UBI, I wouldn't care if somebody went and volunteered all day. To me, that's fantastic. Like, yeah, they're not bringing in an income, they're not actually contributing in that sense, but they are contributing, you know, whether it is, you know, they fill their entire week with charity work, maybe taking care of like an elderly grandparent or something. Like I wouldn't resent somebody in the future of work if I'm working, because I mean, I'm doing something that I love and that I enjoy doing. So to me, it doesn't really feel like work, you know, insert old joke here, but like that wouldn't offend me. And so I think that if we could start looking into that version of what the future of work could look like, sort of sponsored by automation, I think that would be pretty cool, of the things that people would be able to come up with and create. And you know, if you're not worried about being poor all the time, like the number one shoplifted item in America is baby food. That's depressing on like 17 different levels. But if you're not stressing out about stuff like that, you now have the time and the freedom, the mental capacity to come up with things, to create new ideas, to do stuff, whether it's in your community or for money in an office, or whatever the future office will look like, which is will be everywhere and nowhere. I think automation could totally do that for us. But like, again, we have to have a lot of big ifs there.
Yeah, yeah. Have you heard of, I believe in Australia, they have something called the tall poppy syndrome. Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
Where people are on sort of the dole, you know, government assistance, and it's enough to live on. So I guess anybody who kind of strives to do more than just the basic level, like people who here, it'd be somebody who's super motivated and ambitious and an overachiever. They call that person the tall poppy. And I guess they want to cut him down because he does so much more than everybody else and makes them look lazy. I think that's what it means. Please correct me, internet, if I'm wrong. But it's. Do you feel that if there is sort of this, you know, base support level where people don't have to traditionally work if they don't want to, then that's going to reduce, you know, motivation? Like, you know, like people in the US right now, people are saying, oh, stop unemployment, make people go back to work. You know, is that, I don't think that that's actually the case. What do you think?
That like, if would giving, is your question, would giving a UBI make people
Well,
stop?
you said just now, it wouldn't bother me if somebody was volunteering to help, you know, an elderly person or a sick person. And when you said that, I thought, oh, is that because you're working full time, yet you see somebody who's not, but doing something else? When you said it wouldn't bother you, I guess that's what I'm asking. When you said it wouldn't bother you, what do you mean it wouldn't bother you?
Well, like I'm assuming I would also be getting a UBI to some degree in this future society.
Right.
So if I'm getting a UBI, I'm like, yeah, cool, awesome. I'm getting the same thing, but I'm choosing to do other things beyond the UBI. Like if somebody's able to, I mean, I know in Vancouver it probably wouldn't go very far, but like if you're able and willing to live on that, then great, go for it. But I know a lot of people just intrinsically wouldn't be content with that. And so that's where I think the sort of like human nature part kicks in, where I think a lot of people would get creative and do interesting things, as opposed to, I can't even think about working or going back to school or anything because I have to rotate 3 different jobs, and you know, we'll never be able to save up enough to repair the car and whatever. Like there's a lot of talent, I believe, that's lurking in minds working 3 jobs at a fast food restaurant, you know, like those are the minds that I think are cultivating a lot of ideas and things that would ironically get us through the future of work pretty well. but they just don't have the opportunity to be able to go to school or rest or have their basic needs met and then kind of go fulfill those things. I mean, like if you look at stats, even for example, for domestic violence, like a UBI allows people to leave scary situations. And from that, their mental health improves, therefore their work improves. And so now the world gets to benefit from their, like I was reading stats about that, like it's shocking, like how it affects somebody's mind, their creativity, their instinct, all those kind of things. And so like even just stuff like that, whether it was like kids that, turn 18, you're now in an unsafe home or something, like I think a UBI would go a long ways towards supporting people to be able to really contribute to the future of work where they may not be able to now. And now we almost like be able to unlock all these amazing things.
Yes. You reminded me of a experience I had in a doctor's office. I was getting in an elevator. It was on a Friday evening at like 5 p.m., 6 p.m. And we were going down, and like on the 5th floor, this nurse came on in her scrubs, and we chatted on the way down. I'm like, hey, it's quitting time, right? Good weekend. She's like, oh no, I'm off to my second job tonight. And then I have homework this weekend. And, and it was like, and she actually I think she had a third job. And by the time I walked out of that elevator, I was like, it blew me away because I, only had one job, and she was so positive about it. It just really touched me. But the fact of the matter is, it's like, we're just getting stretched more and more and more and more, and eventually you can't be stretched forever. It's like, you can't keep, at some point you have to sleep. You have to take care of your family. So you're right. If there were some sort of basic support so that you didn't have to stress so much about every little thing, then you can actually get out of this tactical hand to mouth, sort of like, how am I going to eat tomorrow or tonight? And how am I going to pay the rent? To, okay, I can take this class next semester. I can, buy my kids some whatever cleats so they can learn how to play baseball or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like, it's interesting. But that, I think we're bordering onto the economics conversation that we had a couple of weeks ago.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
But I think society would also get a bet, like for the nurse example, like society would get a better nurse because she'd be able to focus more on her studies and be able to do her program. So at the end of the day, ultimately you would benefit from that and everybody else would. And so like, that's where I think like, the future of work could really improve through stuff like automation, because then, people, instead of working 3 fast food jobs, could then just focus on school and doing whatever their entrepreneurial thing might be and stuff like that. So I think the quality of a lot of things would get better through automation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. Quality, definitely. I mean, automation never, it's 24/7, 365. It doesn't get sick. It doesn't forget things. So you're absolutely right. Which, brings up an interesting question, sort of human nature. Like when we're in difficult situations, that's when we necessity is the mother of invention. We come up with unique solutions to problems, or we get more creative. If automation sort of becomes more widespread, do we become less creative or more creative?
I think ideally we'd become more creative because we'd be given the sort of freedom to be able to tinker, to just be able to sort of like go try something out. Oh, that didn't work. Oh, okay, try something else. Like you wouldn't have that like a swan, the frantic scrambling under the water, even though things might look calm on top. And that I think would be a possibility there where people will be able to pursue things, get more creative, and try stuff out. Because then you wouldn't have to worry. Like, I mean, entrepreneurs have all the skin in the game compared to, you know, an executive at a Fortune 500 company. Like, being able to support the entrepreneurial class in some capacity would benefit everybody for that very reason. I mean, that's where the next unicorn's coming from. Those are where the next, like, the growth is coming from all the small businesses out there. And they've all been decimated now, but like, think of what it would be like if an entrepreneur would be able to have basic needs met for a little while, or most people. You could start that business, do those things. Like, we would have a thriving small business community.
Well, you could argue that the people that would do that would do it anyway, and the people that wouldn't do that wouldn't do it anyway. You know what I mean?
True.
But I don't know. I guess the only way you'll find out is to try it.
Well, there would always be the marginal people that would, you know, if somebody's got kids, like they need stability, they couldn't do something like that. So it would be somebody like that would be able to go, oh, okay, well, I can still pay the rent, I can still pay everything. I will try that idea. I don't have to wait until, you know, X, when, you know, my kid is X years old, because now I can spend the time, or I don't have to worry about the risk. So stuff like that, I think those people would be the ones that would get into the arena. But yeah, you're right that some other folks, if they're never going to do it, they're never going to do it.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So then, and that's okay. So then it's a zero. There's no gain, but there's no loss either.
Well, not everybody has to be an entrepreneur. Like, somebody has to, you know, clean the toilet. Somebody, and the folks that don't mind doing it, great. They deserve a UBI. They deserve to be able to go home to a safe, clean apartment. I mean, home, whatever. Great. If they want to do it, they can do it. Not everybody has to be an entrepreneur. Not everybody has to do those things, but like, there's variety.
Yeah, that's it would just be an overall less stressful situation for everyone.
Yeah, like the data, if I'm remembering it correctly, it was on the Atlantic, was like, I think it was like a certain, like, poverty line, it's equivalent to losing like a night of sleep every single day for like your mental health. Like, you cannot think properly if you're in that much of a financial panic. Like, you can't make long-term decisions. You can't make good decisions. Like, there aren't any available to you, for one, but even if there were, you probably wouldn't be able to see them because your brain has become so rewired that even if it was there, you couldn't see it. And so this would put an end to that kind of stress, which would ultimately benefit everybody.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah, that's interesting. It would probably save a ton of money too, which is counterintuitive.
Yeah.
You know, it's like prevention, don't get sick, as opposed to treating you after you get sick.
Yeah.
Put money towards stopping people from getting sick. Yeah, that's an aspect of human nature. I don't know if we're there yet.
Well, I think automation, again, like, it has all of that potential, but we have to use it correctly. And that means, you know, us having self-control, foresight, all, you know, ethics, all those kind of things that are really nebulous and really hard to nail down and agree on. But again, like, in our utopian fantasy world where we got like Star Trek toys and hover cars and things like that, like, yeah, I think those things are possible, but we just have to act accordingly.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Not the flying cars part, but the automation part.
Sure. A quick aside, today on LinkedIn in my feed, I saw, this was out in Ontario, California, because I recognized the street signs. This guy was on one of these hovercraft drones, standing on the platform, going down the street with traffic. And he's, you know, maybe 10 feet in the air. He gets to a red light. He comes down and lands. He's just standing there. Light turns green. There's traffic all around. He takes off. And he was like cooking. And he had, you know, no safety harness or anything.
Of course. You guys have no medical insurance, yet everybody acts like they do. It's insane.
Hey, this is California, man. Southern California. So,
crazy.
yeah, well, somebody's got to do it, but it was kind of cool. So you mentioned Star Trek toys. I couldn't help myself. I guess so. The message is we do have our flying cars. Can't complain about that.
Well, I want a flying car, not a hoverboard I'm going to fall off of. Like the fact that I have to go downstairs, get into a car and drive on a road this is shocking. After all the propaganda of Star Trek and everything over the years, I really thought that I wouldn't be a chump driving on a road. Look at us. Brutal.
I think it's right around the corner because people have been working. I mean, there's the number of, I think like the Facebook guy, Sergey, I think he was working on one. I mean, there's so many YouTube videos of these small, they're all like drones with the lots of propellers around them, one-seaters or two-seaters.
Yeah, I want like a little, like, I need a cabin. I don't want to be out like hanging
Yeah.
up on a hoverboard type thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
I saw a video of this kid in the Philippines just like cobbled one together where he's sitting in the middle and it was enclosed and he had all these propellers around him. And this was a couple of years ago. So I'm not sure what the holdup is. Like somebody's using them somewhere. I just,
Not us. That's what we know.
the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed.
That's it. That's a real crime.
Mm-hmm. So this, automation's impact on the future of work, does it take away from our purpose, our sense of like why we're here, or does it add to it? Is there any impact at all? What do you think?
I think it augments it. I think it's one of those things where like we could do a lot of cool stuff with it. Yeah, it could be like, it definitely will have a strong effect for some folks, and which will then have a ripple effect on all of us. But I think there's a lot of potential for allowing everybody to basically level up. But tech has to kind of acknowledge that they do have an ethical and moral role here in at least like making sure. That's why like it's very cool, like with the Work Done charity, of like acknowledging that there is a social cost to what's going on and how successful the stakes are very high if you are as successful as you expect to be. And so that's something that like I think tech needs to grapple with a bit more, because automation definitely is going to affect a lot of people.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up, because I don't know if people are aware. So my company WorkDone basically is it's one of those technology companies that will free people up from a lot of the grunt work. And in some cases, it will free people up to go find new jobs. And hopefully they'll find new jobs. And also we recognize that is going to be difficult for a lot of people. So in our bylaws, we're committing a percentage of our revenue to fund a nonprofit called the Work Forward Foundation. And that actually exists to assist people who have been displaced by AI and automation, to facilitate their transition to their next area of vitality, of like what they're really. Hopefully it's not another 9 to 5. Hopefully it transitions them, supports their transition to their purpose, their mission in life. And a lot of people, don't know what their purpose is or what their mission is. It's like totally tactical. They're trying to get through the week, and they don't, when they were a kid, they had a dream, like, oh, I want to be a fireman or an astronaut. And then that dream went out the window, and it's all about, daycare and paying the bills. And if you can actually just get some help to take a breath and try to remember and, tap back into that sense of purpose, hopefully Work Done can help with that. And I would love it if other tech companies actually, we're all about efficiency and automation and optimization. Uh, it's I was asked by a CEO once. He's like, "Oh, did you feel guilty? Is that why you did that?" I'm like, "Well, wouldn't you?" And the fact that it didn't even occur to him,
Yeah, that's the
kind of
horrifying.
it's kind of weird. And I like money. I'm a capitalist, but it really does seem like there's a social contract that people just it's kind of been torn up and thrown out the window. Not entirely, but a lot of it.
Well, context for that, the profession with the highest rate of, I think it was sociopaths as CEOs. So that's not terribly surprising that they wouldn't have thought about it. Depressing, yes, but not terribly surprising. But that's why I think like more companies should be doing it, at least acknowledging it. But yeah, it's that like the social contract of like the morality of it, I think is like, we have to grapple with that. But I think for the future, like being able to take classes, upgrade your skills, like I think ultimately at WorkDone, you'll be teaching people how to think creatively, because we all kind of had that extracted from us through the schooling system that was very STEM focused and very methodical, very structured, so that creativity is kind of bred out of you. And so I think that now a lot of the automation upskilling for folks who've been displaced is going to center around creative thinking and actually trying to think outside the box, as cliche as that sounds.
Interesting. Yeah, you're reminding me of the TED Talk, about does our education system kill creativity? Do you know the one I'm talking about? Some English guy, Sir Ted. I think I can find it real quick. And it's absolutely fascinating. Creativity in schools. He basically says that what you just said, the Sir Ken Robinson is his name, and the TED Talk is titled "Do Schools Kill Creativity?" And I watched it many years ago. It really made an impact. So much so that I actually catch myself, because I was raised just doing a lot of rote drills and memorization and probably like everybody else, and but which is why I was more of a STEM person. And I see in my 10-year-old daughter, it's like she's super creative, drawing and painting, and pretty resistant to doing math, but she's doing it and she gets it now. But I pull myself back from pushing too hard, because I don't want her to lose that unique. She has a very unique eye, and I want to foster that, even though I don't have that creative. We've talked about this. I'm not a creative person. Well, I'm an innovative person, but I'm not like an artistically creative person. And I don't want to kill that in her. And that's something. I mean, talk about job skills that will never get automated. That's it.
See, you're proving your own case. Like, don't kill the creativity, because that's ultimately what's going to allow her to outmaneuver whatever future of work automation is going to look like for a 10-year-old in the next 20 years. So.
Sure. But I do want to teach her how to think, like in problem solving, and sort of looking at a complex situation and decomposing it into easier pieces, and not being overwhelmed, because she like right now, if it's a long number times a long number, she's like, "Oh, I can't do that." It's like, it's the same as a small number times a small number. You just need a little more paper. And yeah, right. So that's part of it. I got to say, this was her first year in public schools, and it went really well in LA Unified, no less. I think we got a great teacher, and they brought a lot of, give her a laptop, end up, they're using Google, they're using Oracle, they're using Microsoft. There's like all this stuff, and so we were trying to keep her away from the screens, which isn't possible entirely, but now like the school's pushing them on her. So, but she actually is at a point now where she actually doesn't want the screens. She's like, okay, I'm going to go outside, or I'm going to go read a book. I'm starting to get a headache. Yeah, it's amazing. So, yeah, if I look at the jobs that she's going to be applying for, or, she was asking me entrepreneurial type questions, selling her artwork, or baking cookies and selling those. It's like,
that's creativity though, is like figuring out who your market is and how to read them, how to give them what they want before they know they want it. Like that's creativity. And it doesn't always show up the way that we've been told that it shows up. And so that's the part where you almost kind of have to like stand back, give people room to show you what they can do. And then it's like, oh, okay, like a kid who could command the attention of a room and tell a joke or say something funny, like that's a better skill than being, and it's going to do a lot more good for you in business than the kid who could memorize stuff. Like which skill would be more useful? I know what I'd pick.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so I had a college reunion recently, and I was at Harvard undergrad, and a lot of these people, I mean, we've been out for some time now, and yeah, exactly, at least 10 years, and the comment was made that during our undergrad, like none of us learned how to like run a business. We graduated from Harvard not knowing, like, I'm sure there were some classes, maybe like, well, microeconomics, macro and micro. I mean, there's all that stuff, but I don't recall. I was a computer science major, so I wasn't seeking it out, but I don't recall seeing anything about the actual, how do you run a business? I guess, you're supposed to go get an MBA for that afterwards, but it seems like it would be kind of handy to be exposed to that in undergrad. Anyway, it's yeah. So I had to. I mean, I've been self-employed since college, and this is my 5th business now. And my first business back, I actually didn't know what an invoice looked like, and this was pre-internet, so I wasn't able to just go pull it up on and long before mobile phones. So I was living with a band, a bunch of musicians in downtown LA, and it was on a Friday, and I realized that I needed to submit an invoice, and there was a pizza box, and the pizza box had a receipt on it. So I modeled my first invoice after the receipt on the pizza box, which they paid me, so it must have been good enough. Yeah. Yeah, that's another aspect of learning. Like there's school book learning, and then there's like street learning or thinking on your feet. And that's really what I'd like to teach my daughters, how to sort things out quickly and figure stuff out. In addition, which is, there's an aspect of it that's left brain, there's an aspect of it that's right brain. Which,
yes, being able to toggle between creativity and like that creative side and an analytical side is incredibly useful, because then you can be both. Like, because there are the people that are almost like they don't have enough of the businessy brain they're too creative, and it's like, dude, send your invoice out. Like, you're a fantastic designer or whatever, but like they can't get an invoice out, or like those kind of people where you're like, it's almost like a little too far in that sense. So yes, I agree. Like, dude, I have a business degree, and they didn't teach us the inner workings of like actually how to run a business like that. I had to figure that out on my own, like doing it myself. And so like, you're not alone on that. And especially now as a comp sci major, I can't really imagine that you really missed out on much there. But no, they definitely need more like entrepreneurial courses of just like basic stuff, like, you know, like super easy bookkeeping that's good enough for a small business owner, that you don't need an accounting course. You just need like an hour of practical instruction. And then you go, oh, and now you know what to hand your accountant, you know, like that kind of stuff.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, well, I was in way over my head when I started because I came from a public high school down in Santa Ana, California, and it was not one of the better high schools. It is now. Actually, it got a lot of funding, so I was the first kid from my school to go to Harvard. I think the year before we had a kid go to Yale, and I think there was one kid that went to Stanford. But I mean, that was it. And I'll never forget. In college, I was applying for a summer job, and I hand wrote a letter, and this roommate was walking by, and I'm like, hey, could you read this? I'm about to send it out. He's like, Joe, type it. Like, oh, okay. Good idea. But I didn't know. I've been learning.
Comp sci major. That's the problem. Like that's such an engineering brain. Like, well, it's functional. It's great. There it is. I'll just write it out. And you're like, no.
Yes, I'm all about function over form, as long as it works. So
you got what you needed. It all worked out. But
so one other question about automation I had was, and I'm curious to hear what you're going to say. There's like different mind points or mindsets, like a growth mindset versus a closed mindset. And there's like scarcity versus abundance. Some people are playing a zero-sum game, like the pie is this big, I have to get more of it, which means you get less of it. And then there's a lot of people like that, especially in business. And then there's, people who are like, oh, make the pie bigger and we'll all get more. And, that's how the economy actually works. If it was fixed, the economy wouldn't grow and we wouldn't be all, having all this stuff. So it has been working. Trade works. It does grow. It's not fixed. So does automation, I don't know, would it in the future of work, do you think it would actually impact that soul scarcity mindset? People who are like, oh, there's not enough to go around versus the abundance.
I think it's going to activate a lot of people's worst fears of scarcity, whether it's true or not. I think the perception of it will be deeply impactful for many people, depending on their worldview, economic status, age, all those kind of things. But yes, I think a lot of people are either going to be super scared of it or totally ambushed and not at all see it coming.
So basically like now.
Not so much. I think once it becomes more visible, I think it becomes one of those things when enough consumers walk into a fast food joint and go like, oh, there aren't any people. It's enough of those little daily experiences that is going to make a consumer feel like the walls are closing in on them. And then it's going to feel really, really real. And so enough of those kind of data points. And then I think it's going to activate a kind of like lizard brain panic for scarcity in some folks that may even surprise them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. With regards to sort of people freeing up to do more soft human type activities, I think about autonomous cars coming in and how, it's going to impact a lot of the Uber drivers, the Lyft and truck drivers, especially, and that's like huge segments of the workforce. And it's like, okay, what are those people gonna do? And I hope that some of it shifts so that maybe, if you like I think there's an Uber knockoff that just focuses on healthcare, such that if you have to go to the doctor for a procedure or the hospital, when they release you, you're not allowed to drive home because you're all goofy. But you can't just call a cab and get in the back of the cab. So you're supposed to have like somebody pick you up who makes sure you get in your house and not a stranger. But I believe there's like um, I heard a pitch for a company that wanted to be like the Uber for hospitals, so that they would be bonded and certified to pick up people and make sure they made it home. And I'm thinking that maybe some of these people who are displaced, these truck drivers or Uber drivers, can use their driving skills for more sort of humanitarian purposes. It's probably, I don't know how the economics will work out. It's happening now, but usually it's a friend. It's like getting a ride to the airport, right? It's like a friend does it, even though nobody wants to. So maybe the hospitals, but I would hope that, like, Meals on Wheels, and yeah, I hope that we just become a more caring society where it's like, okay, a lot of this other stuff we had to do, we don't have to do anymore. Automation's taking care of it. Instead of being too busy to help people, now we're not too busy to help people. And there should be some sort of something in it aside from feeling good. It should be acknowledged and compensated, maybe.
The caring economy is huge. It's billions and billions of dollars, but it goes unnoticed because the people don't get paid for it. And like, especially with all the boomers retiring, what is it, 10,000 a day or something like that? Like with all the boomers retiring, and now that Gen X and millennials are stuck between caring for kids and caring for elderly parents, something's got to give. And all the caring work that falls to typically the woman in the family, like, it's unpaid, at least in this sense. Now there would be compensation for it, and the opportunity cost is totally different.
That's true. Yeah, if that were compensated, I think there'd probably end up being a lot more women in the workforce and a lot more men staying at home, which,
working, but no, but like the care work of like going to pick up kids from school, driving,
Sure.
elderly parent to medical appointment, and like all those kind of things that like somebody has to do. Ultimately, like if you could get paid for that, whether it's through UBI or through the caring economy, like whatever that would look like, if automation takes over and blah, 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 like that could be a different job, especially with healthcare. Like if you guys actually got universal healthcare, like there would be a ton of new jobs created there. And those are in the caring economy, and that would typically goes to women. And so there's a whole bunch of money just sitting there on the table that no one's claimed.
That's interesting. Is that the case in Canada?
Which part?
That last part about universal health care and, the caring economy, people being compensated.
Oh no, here, like if you were to go pick up an elderly parent or whatever, like you wouldn't get that compensated. But like at least like you've got healthcare, but you don't get paid for, like, we don't have a UBI, so you wouldn't be getting paid for that.
Right. Okay. So we're just we're idealists, sort of.
Well, I don't know if it's so much idealist, but like Silicon Valley's located in the States. So you guys, like, we're all kind of stuck with whatever the tech companies in the States decide to do because they're around the world. So we're all kind of stuck dealing with it. That's more what it's about.
Okay. Yeah, I guess. Sorry. My bad. Our bad.
Maybe it'll come up here. Maybe it'll be like Vancouver. Maybe Montreal. Like, who knows?
Yeah. Every country has their version of Silicon Valley. It's not just. I mean, some stuff starts here, but now it's like almost every state in the U.S. has like a tech center or multiple tech centers. And I learned recently that Guadalajara is kind of known as the tech center in Mexico because there's a lot of universities. Nobody knows about it. And I know like Ottawa. Is it? No, it's not Ottawa. Where's Blackberry?
I don't know.
I want to say
Not Detroit, is it?
no. It's in Canada. It's east of Guelph.
That's Toronto then.
It's east of Toronto, or west of Toronto. There's a big university there. Yeah. Anyway, it's
I failed as a Canadian right now. Sorry, everybody.
No.
Don't at me. Don't at me.
What kind of Canadian are you?
Dude, that's on terrible. Nobody knows and cares what goes on out there. Come on.
I'm terrible. I've never heard that. That's funny. Okay.
As a British Columbia resident, I'm allowed to say that.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, that's funny. And we have an Ontario, Canada, but California. I'm gonna start calling that on terrible too.
You're welcome. Is it actually terrible or is it actually kind of decent?
It's okay. There's an airport there.
Okay. End of list. Okay.
It's in the Inland Empire. It's fine. Perfectly fine. If you're in LA, you drive through on the way to Vegas. You take the 15 north.
Oh, that's nice. So they have a gas station and the airport.
It's actually a good sized town.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's good.
So anyhow, this has been really enjoyable and informative as usual.
Always a delight.
You're
Always.
a font of just information.
I don't know if that's a compliment or not, but I'm going to take it as such.
And wisdom. I'll throw that in there too. Thank you for that. And I guess any closing thoughts before we sign off this week?
I think definitely ponder the future of emotional intelligence, decision making, that kind of stuff. That's where the future lies. Unless you want to fix machines, then that's a different future.
The future of emotional intelligence and decision making.
That's where it lies. Because remember, like future of work, when Henry Ford created the car, he did not expect that he would accidentally create the skiing industry, because in order to get up a mountain, you need a car. So those are the type of things that are going to be happening for us. We just don't know what they are yet. And so that's where I'm hedging my bets on soft skills.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Well, on that, we'll close for this week, episode number 4. Thank you, Kirsten, and to everyone out there in LinkedIn Live land and YouTube Live land. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Indeed.
All right, everyone. Be safe. Take care.